Good afternoon. Today we have a project, the first project of the 10-second build. We are going to be installing gauge pod, 3 gauges, boost, air fuel, oil pressure. Everything you see here is what we're going to need. We've got a ground wire, signal wire, power wire, shrink wrap, drill bits, a drill, the oil sending unit, boost line, connectors, and then we've got our wideband right here. And this is what it's going to look like. We've got boost, air fuel, and oil pressure. You don't necessarily need the creeper or the ramps. Definitely makes everything a lot easier. Earlier last week I went and had the port for the AE or the air fuel gauge installed. I was told that right there on the side of the block where you see that little hex key, that the oil sending unit can go there. Air fuel has got a hole in the right above the cap for that, and the boost gauge supposedly can go in that line right there. So that is what the plan is, and when it's all dressed up and installed, it'll be right here on that pillar is where it's going to go. So I forgot to mention earlier that all the gauges for the wire are 18 gauge is what you're going to need if you decide to do something like this. But first and foremost, we're going to start out with getting the car up on ramps. That way we can get to our port and our exhaust. Okay, so just a little sketchy, but we got it up there. So first things first today, we're gonna go ahead and get our trip mileage. Since we have to unhook the battery, that's gonna change. It's gonna reset itself back to 0. Trip mileage is 1,403. So we'll take this handy dandy little 10 mil right here that I keep on whip status. Come out here. First thing we're going to do is unconnect the negative terminal on the battery. That way everything is not a fire hazard. And I think the first thing I'm going to tackle, ooh, corrosion, fun. That's something I need to take care of. I think the first thing I'm going to tackle is getting the wideband sensor for the air fuel. And then as for location to run it up, I don't know where I'm going to go into the cab at. I haven't necessarily saw or figured out anywhere yet. Alright, this is going to screw me when I do the manual swap, but right next to that grommet through the firewall where the engine harness runs, you see that little black piece right there? On the inside of the cab, I have happened to found the other side of it right there, which has got a couple bolts on it. That whole plate will remove. I can come straight into the cab with all the lines that I need to run. And the kit came with a grommet that I'm pretty sure will fit in that same exact hole. It's for the clutch pedal. It's for a manual assembly, which I'm gonna need later, and I can move it later when the engine's out and I put the other one in. But as for now, that's perfect. I don't have to drill, I don't have to tap. All I gotta do is take that plate out and everything will run right through the firewall. I don't recommend tearing your hand up, but I do recommend a magnet, because that is the way I was able to get that port down there open. And if you look at it from the cab, it's a perfect pass-through into the cab to wire these gauges with. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath and I'm going to pass the cable, this cable, for this through the firewall up into the cab. Go ahead and start running that, looking about where it's going to go, finding out which fuse here is constant power, all that stuff you got to know, constant power, keyed power, switched power, that kind of thing. Get this put in, get it wired up, get this through, and then start working on the power for it. That took a little bit longer than expected. That port cap right there, that thing was stuck. So I ended up having to take that Allen key right there And that jack handle right there, and getting enough leverage on it to pop that sucker loose. But now it's out, so the air fuel gauge sensor itself will be going in. All right, so I've got the air fuel in, which is what I'm tugging on. So whatever the hell that is behind it, you can already see where that thing has been moving enough to rub on that charge pipe. So I don't really want this rubbing up against it. The air fuel angle is almost like wrong. I could pull on this line and zip tie it down to where they would clear each other, if you can see, but I don't want constant pressure on that elbow to the point to where it quits working. So I'm not real sure what to do. I don't know if it's allotted that I put some pressure on this line and just tie it down with some zip ties and keep it away from that. I'm not real sure right now. I definitely don't want the two rubbing on each other though. I don't know if maybe I can get up there and zip tie the line to that silver, so whenever it flexes, the O2 flexes with it. I ended up coming down with the power side through that little tunnel right there. I wanted to keep it as far away from moving parts as possible. I think I managed to do that, but I've got to situate this little debacle right here and find out what's going on exactly. Alrighty, so what I decided on was, it's there, it's not touching that silver line. I brought it over here, zip tied it right there, and then it runs up that way and out. It'll be into the cab from there. Okay, so currently we're looking for constant 12-volt power with the key off, which we found right there. Then we need to find something with a key on ignition that's not constant, which we found right there. So we'll pull that one out because we know that's our ignition one, and then we need a headlight one. That one's good. Okay, we found them. So between those two, we got one that's ignitioned, and then we've got one headlight. So that'll be the one we wire all the lighting for the gauges into, and then the other one will be power to all the gauges. It'll kick on when the car kicks on. Okay, so we're using Expandable Circuits, and they come with a 4-amp fuse. Goes in the back of the, goes in the back. So if you look at that, you got ports, and it says stock fuse, goes in the front, 4-amp, goes closest to the wire coming in. So this 4-amp will go on the outside, like that. And then the stock 10-amp one will go in front, like that. So there's your expandable circuit, and now you can run your power wire. This will be my keyed. So this will go, kind of want to do it like that, because we are going up and through over here. So I guess realistically having them facing up is not a bad idea. Okay, real quickly, just made a couple power wire and negative wire that'll go into this top wire right there. I got some shrink wrap sheath on it too. I'm going to put over everything just to give it an extra touch of well done. I only needed two, or actually one set of power wires, like ignition to power wires, because air fuel ratio gauge came with its own. That white and blue wire I'm going to have to cap because I'm not going to need them. But the black and red wire are going to run to this as well as these, which will all go, that'll go to the air fuel, this will go to the oil pressure gauge. The boost gauge itself only has lighted power wires, which will be that bottom one right there, as well as the oil pressure gauge has got lighted power wires, so that'll be that bottom one as well. Power wires for the bottom oil pressure gauge. Light power wires for the bottom oil pressure gauge. And then we've got light wires for the top boost gauge. I've got the lighted part done. That's the headlight actuating. Shrink wrapped, joined in, 2 power wires for the light socket switches. I've got them marked so I know what they are. They will run all the way up like they're supposed to, so those are done. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this set, which is going to run to the bottom, which is all I need out of this one. That'll be joined by the power wires for the air fuel gauge. Well, we got something. Well, the wiring works. That's the main thing I'm after. Alright, so I've officially decided to call it for the night. I essentially got the loom in. This is where it'll plug into the box. This is pretty much for all the power supply to the gauge pod itself. Up and run, it'll come up through there and power the pod. But yeah, it was a few hours worth of work. Day 2 of this project. I took some time off camera, did a lot of cleanup work to the loom and everything, the ground. Also the plate through the firewall that everything's going to be passing through, I took and had drilled out. Turned out really good. Nice rubber grommet in there to keep everything from chafing. That'll deaden a lot of the noise coming through the firewall right now. Got signal wire ready to go for the oil pressure gauge. This is the ground, power source. But it's all nice and tidy. I did a test fit last night, turned out really good. So after much research, that line right there is supposedly the line that you need to tap into for the boost gauge. So I guess really here goes nothing. And we'll pick it up and then splice into it. If I can get it, I might have to do this with 2 hands. Alright, well, there it's split. So we'll go ahead and put this T in there. So that actually fit in there a lot better than I thought. I thought there was going to be some space to take up, but it seems pretty tight. So I'm going to test it. And go ahead and start it up and put my hand over it, make sure that it doesn't have any sounds of suck or leak or anything like that. Alright, with my thumb over it, other than that, there's no noise, so I think that'll work out all right. All right, so I got the thread tape and the adapter on the back of the boost gauge. My only question is, this is the line that came with it, and it goes in here. My main question is that going to be enough to where when the boost hits, it doesn't just pop out? There's no clear instruction on how to hold this in there or what the plan is. So once I put it in there, the angle that it's sitting because of that little bevel right there, it's really taut. So I don't think it's gonna pop out on this side at least. About to run this up through the dash to the gauge that it goes to. I took and ran it through the grommet, as well as I took the blue signal wire and ran it through. And it's coming out right there, running up. It's gonna not run up, it's gonna run underneath to where the pressure gauge is gonna be, which is right there. So it'll be running across here in some way, shape, or form. I haven't figured it out yet. The only thing I have left to do is put thread tape on this and then run that boost line through the firewall and then hook everything up. All right. There it is. Boost gauge, air fuel's hooked up, run down, power wires are in. I just got to tuck this excess air fuel, Go ahead and mount the pillar pod, get it clamped in place with the body pins or whatever they are. And then the only thing left is to install that oil pressure sensor, and that's it. Okay, off camera over the past like 30 minutes, I was able to get a couple things done. I had to notch this factory A-pillar. It didn't say to, but it wouldn't. This pod was descripted as able to fit over the factory A-pillar without having to remove it. Well, that wasn't the case because these wires wouldn't fit behind and between because of how tight everything is right here in this corner. So what I ended up having to do is notch the factory A-pillar cover itself to get the lines and everything to go through. Also, without that, it wouldn't have left anything to mount the body pins to. These little guys right here. So I had to use the factory A-pillar, which entailed that. All right, now for what I consider the hard part, getting that out of there. You're supposed to be able to take a flathead, get it in there. I gotta find an extension. All right, 1/4 inch deep well, extension, flathead. Hopefully this works. Look at that. That is money. All right. Get some paper towels to catch the oil. A little bit. All right, let's go ahead and try to throw this in here where it bleeds out completely. That's quite a bit. And with that, there it is. There's the boost control, or the boost gauge. I just kind of winged it and was just making things up as I went. I ran it up over PCM through to there. That way it doesn't get caught or really snag on anything. But there it is. Here it goes. Here we go. Wow. There it is. All right, I think it's officially in. It's done. So real quickly, I just wanted to address the elephant in the room. Like, I understand there are more efficient ways to do what I did with the boost, air fuel, and oil pressure gauge. There are multiple tuner programs out there that have tablet style electronic dashboards, more or less. But since this is only a 10-second build, that's not really anything that we needed. I was trying to keep this build as simple as possible and as, you know, budget friendly as possible. The next build will have like a Holley EFI on it. It'll also have the electronic dashboard and whatever. But as for this is all I needed. So hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned a couple things, and thanks for watching.